Welcome to another episode of For the Love of Theatre podcast, which aims to bring the South Australian community theatre scene to you. My name is Olivia Jane Parker, and I'll be your host. Whilst the opening track was provided by Ben Waller, all the other music featured in this episode was composed, produced, and played by Phil Short, and he's provided that music to give you a little taste of what this show is all about. So big thanks to Phil Short. There is much to cover in this episode, but as always, we start with a creative quote. And whilst this comes from an NBA basketball player, you can apply it to creative endeavours. This was popularised by Kevin Durant. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Well, now that we're motivated, let's get started. For this episode, I was invited to attend rehearsals for Angels in America, which is produced by the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild. Coming up, there will be interviews with the director, cast members, and the theatre administrator from the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild. Stay tuned! Meet the cast. I speak to Kazmira Lorien, who plays the part of Harper Pitt. Kazmira is a performer, writer and teacher. She has appeared in many productions, including performing in the title role in Devine Productions' Violet, for which she won the 2017 TASA Award for Best Female Performance, and Fantine in the G&S Society's 2018 production of Les Miserables, for which she was nominated for a Best Female Performance Curtain Call Award. Kazmira partnered with David Salter to write and star in the post-apocalyptic black comedy Dystopia for the Adelaide Fringe, which sold out its 2024 season. Okay, so my first question is, who do you play in this production?
I play Harper Pitt. She is the wife of Joe Pitt, who's a lawyer, and is discovering through the play, it becomes clear that he's always known it, I guess, but is realising that he's gay. And this does not go over well with Harper because it destroys their marriage, really. So that's kind of the play sort of revolves around two couples. So Harper and Joe is one of them, and then Pryor and Lewis are the other. And it's kind of about their their journeys, but they all intertwine, as it were, as well.
The play is in two parts.
Yeah.
Does this character feature in both?
Yeah. She has a really nice journey. Actually, I really love what she goes through. And she's also, I don't want to say too much because obviously I don't want people to know everything. Although I guess it is a fairly old play, so a lot of people would know. She has some sort of major mental health problems. It's never really explained what. But she does a lot of self-medicating with Valium. And so she hallucinates and she's off the planet a lot of the time. And it's very much kind of about how she kind of comes to grips with her life and the changes in her life, and how and she's also quite agoraphobic, so she doesn't ever leave the house, and sort of gradually she sort of figures things out and kind of comes into her own a bit, which I love a lot. Yeah. It's really fun.
Is that what drew you to the role? The fact that it is a complex character and it has a journey?
Yes, incredibly. I think she's one of the best written women in theatre, honestly. Like, there's a lot of great female roles, but I've always wanted to play Harper. I actually wanted to play her. Back when I was 17, I auditioned for drama school with a Harper monologue. That's kind of how long I've coveted this role. So I'm really excited to finally do it. I also, like, it's going to sound odd to say, but I really relate to her. Like, on an individual level, I think we've got a lot of stuff in common. Maybe not so much the Valium addiction, but the just the way that she feels things really deeply and really intensely. That's something that I relate to a lot. So I really enjoy playing her for that reason.
And what's been the main difference between the two parts for you as an actress? Is it the writing style? Is it the nature? Does the tone shift?
That's such a good question. Because I kind of see the part 2 as a continuation of part 1. So I never really think of it as two different plays, but obviously they are. We keep talking about part 2 feeling harder. Part 1 feels more linear, and part 2 feels a bit more, everything gets... And I don't want this to sound like it's off-putting. It's not. It's really well written. But part 2 just feels a little bit more like there's a bigger... How do I describe it? Bigger scope. Mm-hmm. And a slightly more disjointed feeling, I would say. But for my character, she gets a lot more joy and lucidity in the second part. The first part's really her life kind of crumbling around her, and then she sort of builds it back up a bit more in the second part. So for me specifically, I see there being a real character shift. Mm-hmm. The writing itself, to me, feels very similar, but other people might have different opinions.
And what about, you've said collectively that it's harder?
I guess it's just the first part feels much more linear to us. Like, quite a few of us have said, part 1 just stays in our brains better because it feels like it kind of follows this real clear linear narrative. And part 2 is just it just feels a little bit different. It kind of goes, again, without spoiling too much, it delves further into the sort of the fantasy elements of the play, I guess. It goes a little bit more opaque. And I guess all of us as well, most of the main 4, I don't want to say there's a main 4, but I was just, in the 2 couples, we have much bigger breaks. In part 2, the narrative focuses a lot on Roy Cohn, and the angel comes into it a lot more. So I think it's harder because individually we just have larger gaps as well.
But it is an ensemble piece.
Oh, extremely. Yeah. Like, everyone is as integral as the next person. Yeah, for sure.
How do you go about navigating your energy with the energy that's needed for both parts with your other cast members?
Such a good question that I'm not 100% sure how to answer because we haven't really put it to the test yet. Like, we're all really aware of what it's going to take, I think. And we've done a full run through of the whole show once, all the way through. Okay. And that was a big day. It was a long day. In terms of energy, I think we're just we're kind of approaching it like we're doing 2 plays back to back. I think the most challenging thing's lines. Yeah. Kushner as well is known for being really wordy and also being so specific. So we're working really hard to not ever paraphrase, get the lines exactly as they're written. And that's really tough because we're doing 2 3-hour plays. And so just keeping a lot of lines in our brains. And there's certain characters like Lewis, for instance, who just has pages and pages of just talking, which is incredible. It's a big mental exercise more than anything. I think the sense of overwhelm, and there's quite a lot of anxiety amongst the cast about really wanting to get it right and really wanting to make sure we don't drop lines. And because it's so ensemble as well, there's a lot of scenes that are split scenes and overlapping scenes, so we've got to make sure that we get it right so that they get it right. But I guess because of that, there's also this real sense that we're in it together. And so there's camaraderie there, and we're doing a lot of just getting together and running stuff and being together. So I think as a group we're going to feel really connected by that.
Yeah, the anxiety can often drive your performance too, and drive you to do more line runs and...
Completely, and I think we're so invested. I've not done a play for such a long time where everyone just feels so invested in getting it right and really wanting to do it well. And I think it's because we're also aware that because it's a long play and we're asking the audience for a fairly big commitment, we just really want to deliver on that and make sure it's actually worth people's time, which I think it will be, completely, I think it will be. If nothing else, I mean, I really love this cast and I think they're going to be great, but if nothing else, the show is written so well that you're just in for a really nice time because the words are so beautiful.
Now, when I arrived, you were all trying on various costumes. How does that help you with your character and your performance?
I think it's huge. I think we're just sort of getting into that point now where things are starting to click into place and we're moving away from like the sense of piecing the show together to really adding that depth and that detail and that really knowing motivation and really understanding who we are, and everything just lifts every single time. And I think with costume you just get that extra sense of who you are. I think actors love props and love, you know, things to do with their hands, and my character particularly, she's very anxious and she's very internal, so I've done a lot of like holding myself in and playing with my clothes and having tics and kind of playing with my hair and doing a lot of stuff like nervous sort of habits. So like for me to know what I'm wearing is going to be major to that because I'll actually get to do what I'm supposed to be doing. But I do think it just adds that extra level of reality to it.
University of Adelaide Theatre Guild presents Angels in America, written by Tony Kushner, directed by Hayley Horton. Playing from the 2nd to the 25th of May at the Little Theatre. Tickets are available from trybooking.com/CNUGM or at the door. Angels in America, a gay fantasia on national themes, is an exciting epic production in 2 parts. It delves into the complexities of sexuality in America during the 1980s. This masterpiece by Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award winning playwright Tony Kushner is celebrated for its metaphorical and symbolic depth, following its acclaimed West End revival, which won the Olivier Award, and a successful transfer to Broadway with 11 Tony Award nominations and 3 wins. This production is a spectacle of both grandeur and intimacy. In Part 1, Millennium Approaches, Prior Walter is HIV positive. His Jewish boyfriend leaves him for a straight Mormon, and he gets a hospital visit from an angel who says it's up to him to save humanity. While in Part 2, Perestroika, various forces have gathered in New York. The ex-boyfriend and his Mormon lover, the pill-popping ex-wife, the conservative mother, a rabid Republican lawyer, a drag queen, and a dead activist. And Prior as the future of the world in his hands. Full of humour and hope, these diverse characters captivate audiences in their contemplation of humanity and our progress towards a new millennium. It's magical, but grounded in reality, with Kushner's erudite writing and some of Adelaide's most talented performers. Angels in America is a theatre event not to be missed. The cast includes Kate Analak, Lee Cook, Rachel Dalton, Brant Eustace, Matt Houston, Kazmira Lorian, Eric McDowell, and Lindsay Pradilla. This production will contain frequent strong language, adult themes, sexual references, sexual themes, and some nudity, so it is recommended for adult audiences. Angels in America is produced by special arrangement with Broadway Play Publishing Incorporated, New York City, and is presented over 2 separate performances, each with a duration of approximately 3 hours. And if you have any inquiries, please contact the Theatre Guild at theatreguild@adelaide.edu.au.
Introducing Lee Cook as Lewis. Lee has performed in many shows over the past 25 years and is ecstatic to finally tick working with the Theatre Guild off his bucket list, along with the opportunity to work with Hayley Horton, a director he has admired for many years. You may also recognise that wonderful voice from his podcast, Why Do We Do This?, which he co-hosts with Joshua Caldwell. I encourage you to check it out on Spotify. Matthew Houston as Prior Walter. Matt has been involved in a number of the Guild's productions over the past decade, most recently Hand to God, for which he won TASS's Theatrical Award for Most Outstanding Performer. See Matt in Angels in America when it opens on the 2nd of May at the Little Theatre.
I was drawn to my part because I couldn't see myself in any other part, and I just really wanted to be part of this project, so just kind of went for it. I don't think I am people's first choice for this role for multiple reasons, but my job is to convince you that I will be okay in it. So yeah, you go, mate.
You're amazing in it. You've got nothing to worry about.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's great.
And as for Lee, I'll answer for him. But he basically is his part. He's like a living, walking Lewis.
That means that doesn't involve acting at all.
You're not Jewish, though. You're not Jewish, no.
Yeah, for me, in high school, and I just loved it. I fell in love with it, and there's so many great parts in the show but I think what drew me to Lewis in particular was, I guess sometimes he's kind of labelled as the villain in the piece, and I just don't think he is at all. Like, I think he's a very flawed human being, and I kind of wanted to try to make him at least relatable. And I think that's the challenge for me, is to make him relatable and human and get the audience to understand why he's doing what he's doing, because it's actually quite complex why he does what he does. But that's what makes it interesting too, yeah. And I get to kiss a lot of boys, so that's good too.
So speaking of challenges, this is a two-parter, which means a longer rehearsal period,
Yes.
longer stage time. Does that factor in when you make a decision about taking this on?
I think you have to, just because timetables, but for me, I think my most favourite part of this whole process in creating this art that we call theatre is I love the rehearsal process and the collaboration with the cast and the director. And so to have like a really long rehearsal period is fantastic, because that's the whole reason why I probably do it, to be honest with you. So to enjoy that kind of collaboration and workshopping and just playing around is fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of project that you wouldn't just want to take on with anyone. I think it is the team, and definitely, I guess we come back to the previous question about what drew us to the part. I think it's more so what drew me to the show and like what could be offered, knowing that Hayley was directing.
Of course, yeah.
Lee here was pre-cast. He's a very strong actor, as is Rachel, who plays the angel. So knowing that those three were on board already, is the start of a really good team, and something that I'd like to be, I guess, associated with or involved with. So, yeah, that's a major draw card.
Because I can't imagine any other director in Adelaide except for Hayley doing this.
Yeah, I
can't imagine anyone even signing on to do it. I mean, she's so brave, and all of her previous productions have been brave, strong, interesting, character-driven pieces of work.
Accolades for this piece of work, and for a reason, because we've been on this since January, been thinking about it since last year, and I'm only really just starting to get a hold of it as a whole project. And so if the audience can take away just a certain percentage of that, then I think we've done a good job. We could talk about it for hours.
I think it's also... Yeah. I think also because it's a two-parter, traditionally, usually what most groups do is they'll just do part one, Millennium approaches, and then they'll usually just do part two as like a table read. So you go in and just watch the actors just read the second part, Perestroika. So to actually have both parts going at the same time is an amazing opportunity for the audience, like an amazing opportunity for us to actually do both parts simultaneously. I mean, it's great. I can't wait. Gagging to get into the theatre.
Now, in terms of your rehearsal process, you mentioned that there was some workshopping. What was that like? Does Hayley come in with exercises, or is there background in characterisation, or...?
She's quite big on discussing character, and because the cast is so good, like, it's great. Like, you come to rehearsals and it's really aware that guys have done their research, and they've kind of been looking up their characters, researching about it, discussing it. And I think initially with a play like this, because it's so big and every scene can be done 5 different times, you could interpret it so differently that you kind of have to workshop it and play around with each of the scenes to kind of at least get a base where you're starting from, and then from there you just slowly build over time, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been a perfect blend of us bringing stuff to the table to begin with, and then her just kind of picking what she likes, and then I guess polishing bits that she doesn't, or she already has her own really strong opinions on how the show should look, but is also really lenient because she appreciates that there's her, we have our assistant director Tracy, and there's 8 actors. There's like about 10 imaginations in one room there, so she's done so well to find a good balance, to take on our ideas, her own feedback to fit into her vision. So, yeah.
I guess harnessing the energy too, because all of us work so differently. Like we're all, I mean, most everyone in the cast is experienced and have done a lot of work previously, but I think it's kind of harnessing that energy and how we work so differently, and one actor working one way is so different from another one, and kind of doing scenes together and having that process, going through that process and actually understanding how that works. I mean, I work quite organically and emotionally first and take lots of bits, while there's some other guys in the cast who are very structured and like to do it in a particular way and in a certain format. And so, but what's so beautiful about the show and the people that we're working with is there's no prima donnas. Everyone's just jumping in and appreciate and love and respect the process. So you kind of feel really safe. But you have to. I mean, you're getting naked and doing all this other stuff, so you have to kind of, trust it. Yeah.
I heard you speaking to Kazmira earlier about sustaining energy throughout the whole show. And I think that, coming back to Lee's point about how we all work differently, it's been so fascinating watching Kazmira and Lee in particular. They come in and they are screaming and they're crying and they are like 100% pumped and ready, like performance ready, I would have said. And then I've come in just like reading my lines, just feeling my way into it. So yeah, it's just so great seeing everyone lift. We've got a newbie called Eric in our cast.
Oh, Eric, he's so good.
He plays the role of Belize in the show, and he is a fabulous find. He is like a little sponge because he's done a student show before and that's it. And so he is just taking it all in and just kind of watching him and all of us, I guess, just level up basically every rehearsal. It's been really nice. So.
But I think it's a good thing that Hayley's encompassed all the different ways of working, because I think it's a great way for you to get to know each other as well and to build trust, and that's really important.
I've never worked with her before, always wanted to, and she is someone that you slot in and you just trust straight away. Like, I know that sounds kind of pretentious and stuff, but it's actually someone, she comes in very organised, she's no stuffing around, like she's very particular and she's very specific about what she's after as well, but also she's open to playing around and feedback and collaboration and talking about it. So because, as an actor, you want to be able to come in and play with that stuff, and you don't just want to be told what to do and stand over there and deliver the line, because it takes out the fun out of the process. And yeah, she's amazing, and to have someone so committed to the show as well, especially such a long show, but then also to have a big show and then cast someone like Eric, who I guess is a newbie who's only done one show before. I mean, most people would think that was brave, but I think Hayley has such the talent, and he has the talent, that it's actually just so... I mean, that's what this theatre is about, isn't it? Is getting new people in and giving them opportunities and letting them have a go and get on stage and learn your craft. And I mean, that's what amateur theatre is. So I think it's, I think it's fantastic. I think it's brilliant.
You get a new perspective, a new energy. And sometimes maybe training gets in our way a little bit, so you get to go back to the grounding of where everything started.
Yes, yeah.
Come along to the show. We're on May 2nd to 25th.
Look at you spruiking. Very good.
Yep.
Look, and I think depending on how you want to watch the show, there's so many options. You can smash it in one day, which is what I would do. I'd probably see the matinee, which would be part one, go to the pub, come back and watch part two, or you can break it up into watch it on a Friday and then watch it on the part two on the Saturday. Or you can do it one week and then watch the part two next week, or just come and see the part one, and if you like it, come and see part two. So you can break it up. So it's an easy way to watch it. Yes, very.
Yeah.
Director Hayley Horton has been involved with Adelaide's amateur theatre community for more than 30 years, first treading the boards at the Stirling Community Theatre with the Hills Youth Theatre in 1992. Hayley is honoured to be a life member of the Hills Musical Company and has been an Adelaide Fringe judge, a producer of many professional and community productions, as well as working as an arts manager in South Australia and Tasmania for many years. What is your experience with the play prior to directing it?
Wow, actually very little really when I think about it, because I feel like I know it inside out now, but I saw the National Theatre Live production, so that was a really great production with Andrew Garfield and Nathan Lane and Russell Tovey and a whole bunch of cool performers, and so I just saw it at the cinema and loved it, and I actually rewatched it during lockdown because they made their library available when we were in lockdown, so I watched it again, and then I obviously read the script and that sort of thing and got a bit more into it. So yeah, other than that, I've never seen it live. I just love the script. There's a reason it won the Pulitzer Prize, I think. It's just so well written.
Absolutely. It's quite an ambitious play, and I say that with great enthusiasm because I can't wait to see it. It's ambitious for the Guild, the cast, the crew, and of course yourself. What made you want to take it on?
I have always been somebody who, as a director, being in amateur theatre, obviously it's a huge commitment. So for me, it's all about I have to love the text. I have to really want to do it. So it's been a bit on the list of this would be really great. And I actually have pitched it around to a few companies in Adelaide, and the Guild were the ones who said yes and were brave enough to say yes. And, you know, the pitch of we're in the little theatres, so really stripping it back, making it much more intimate is a really exciting challenge for me as well. I also design my shows as well as direct them. So really having to retool it. There's absolutely no way we can copy any of the professional productions because we just don't have the resources or the venue for it, which is what I prefer anyway. I prefer not to copy other productions. Mm-hmm. So it is ambitious, being less than a week till bump in. It's very scary, but the real core of this is the heart of the text and the hopefulness and the idea of this show that really, I keep saying we could do it on a blank stage and it would still translate and still be really moving. So the fact that we're starting from that level and then we'll just add our own design to it makes it feel more achievable. We don't have to have beautiful hydraulic sets and flashing lights and all that sort of stuff. We can still get the point of the piece across with just the characters and the story. So
you feel that the text is open to imagination and your own interpretation?
Absolutely, because there's so much in it that is a bit, I keep delineating between reality and supernatural. Mm-hmm. So there's a big question about whether the supernatural stuff is actually happening or if it's being hallucinated, or we're not really sure. We're hoping the audience will make their own minds up on that. But because of the supernatural aspects of it, you can play with that. You can make it whatever you want, because really if it is just being conjured in someone's mind, then it could be absolutely anything. So we can just completely change how it's been done before. We can do it how we want to do it and how we want that to come alive as well. So that definitely gives us some flexibility, I think.
That's great. And the play is in two parts. Do you see them as different plays or as an extensions of one another? What is their relationship?
Yeah, I mean, Kushner says that you could easily see them as separate plays. I think they are very engaging plays, very good characters. I do think part two would be a little bit harder to access if you didn't know who the characters were and where they're coming from. And I cannot imagine watching part one and not going and watching part two, because it ends on a cliffhanger. And I would hate personally being in the theatre and going, that's it. So that's why I insisted on we do both parts in the same season, because obviously we looked at lots of options. So like, do we just do part one and leave it at that, or do we do part two in 6 months time, and so that the cast can rehearse and that sort of stuff? And in the end I said no, I think we need to treat it like one big play. So that's what we've done. We've treated it from a rehearsal perspective as one big piece, and I think for the audiences it's good for them to have a little break, otherwise it's a very long 6 hours. But yeah, so I do think they can be watched individually, but I wouldn't encourage anyone to go to part two without seeing part one, because they might just
it's kind of like watching a Marvel movie, you know. You've got to work out who everyone is first. You might miss some of the nuances, and it is beautifully tied together the way it's written, as far as Kushner refers back to things, and there's themes that carry through both parts and that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a theatre experience being able to go to both, I think.
How wonderful. How have you structured the rehearsal period? Has it been a standard rehearsal period? Have you had to extend?
We've had to extend. We've definitely, usually for a play, I do 8 to 10 weeks max rehearsals. We've done over 16 weeks by the time we open. And we have, it's just been really churning through. So all of our cast were cast a year ago, and they've been on learning their lines and stuff since the middle of last year probably. So when we turned up to first rehearsal, a lot of them have been quite books down, which has been really helpful. But yeah, just blocking, and then running and blocking, and running and blocking. And we're trying to mix it up now, as far as trying to do part 1, part 2, mix it up as much as we can, so that they just get very used to running the whole show, and it doesn't matter which part it is. So it's been hard and fast and a huge commitment, but everyone's kind of passionate about it, so the commitment's nothing if you really love it. So
absolutely. Was it difficult casting for this production, and what was the audition process like?
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? I wouldn't call it difficult, other than you want amazing people in the roles, because obviously, again, if you're sitting and watching someone for 6 hours, you want them to be good. You don't want to. So there wasn't really difficulty. I mean, certainly we have an African American role, which in South Australia is a bit harder, but even then we had choices, which was really lovely. So we really feel like we've got the best people in the cast. We just did open auditions, although we did precast Lee as Lewis and Rachel as the Angel, because I had very specific ideas of what I wanted for those roles, and I felt those two were really, really good for those roles, and so that was something we advertised as they're already cast. But everybody else was very much open auditions, so we just had people come in and read, and we had the luxury of them, because Rachel and Lee were already attached to the project. They also read opposite people in the auditions, which was really helpful to get an idea of that chemistry. And then it was kind of easy. In the end, it was pretty obvious. I mean, there were some parts that we definitely had lots of people to choose from, which made it a bit more difficult, but in the end it just felt right, and so we're really lucky with who we've got. I think we've got some of the best in Adelaide, which is very exciting.
And you have an assistant director, Tracy Walker.
The wonderful Tracy Walker.
Can you explain how you utilise your assistant director and what has been your working relationship?
Sure. It's probably a little bit different on this one. I've had assistant directors on a number of projects, because I really feel that in Adelaide we actually, I don't think, have enough directors with experience. I think there's a lot of people, and companies are fantastic at giving people a go, but I was a performer for many years, and then I decided to make the jump into directing. And one of the best things for me was I had a director friend of mine be my assistant director, and that really helped me learn about, and then I had other director friends coming in and helping me and that sort of stuff. So I really had to learn, because even if you've been in the rehearsal room a million times, directing is different. Or if you've been a stage manager a million times but you haven't been in the rehearsal room, it's a really different experience, and it's that big picture part. So usually I take on an assistant director as kind of a mentoring thing, to train up and help people have those opportunities without having to jump in the deep end straight away. This time round, though, different. I've known Tracy for years. I've had the pleasure of directing Tracy a couple of times. She's an amazing artist herself. And I knew I needed somebody who could be more of a support for me, rather than having to train someone who was green. So I was looking for somebody experienced. So she does take on some of the load, particularly when we're polishing things and getting detail and trying to really get to that level of characterisation and that sort of thing. Tracy's amazing like that, but she's also been a fantastic support to me. You know, I don't have a meltdown because Tracy's there. She's also doing a bit of the production side of things for me as well, because, you know, it's very much we do our own thing and get things up. So she's taken on quite a bit of that role with me as well, which has been really, really helpful. So the choices were, I put a call out and Tracy said, "Hey, I might be interested," and I went, "Yes, please. Thank you very much." I think I finished that point.
You did finish that question. What can audiences expect when coming to see this production?
Oh, what can they expect? I'd like them to expect, because I think the thing is, people have this understanding of this play and they know what it's about, but I wonder if perhaps their perception is different to what the actual show is if they haven't seen the show. So what I'd like them to expect is actually quite a hopeful story and quite a funny play. It's actually very funny at times, but hopefully it's moving and it's creative and it's meaningful. They do need to be prepared for a little bit of confronting stuff. There's a bit of swearing, there's a bit of sex, there's a bit of all those sorts of things in it, but really at the end of the day it's just a great story. And it's, you know, I keep saying the good guy wins, the bad guy dies. That's the way to go. It's not necessarily a huge tearjerker, depressing show, and I think sometimes that because there is an AIDS storyline, there's an assumption that it might be harrowing. I don't think it's harrowing at all. So I want audiences to come in just with this idea of, you know, expect creativity, expect beautiful characters, and hopefully to be swept away in this world, because it's a very cool story.
Well, thank you so much for your time. You've got a very busy rehearsal schedule and there was a lot of chaos earlier. Yes. Managed chaos.
Sorry, you
so
really
let's
saw
get
the
back.
chaos. Yeah. Thank you.
Kate Analak as Hannah Pitt. Kate has performed with many Adelaide companies in plays and musicals, and in the Theatre Guild's productions of 17, Arcadia, and most recently in Ink, which has been nominated for several Theatrical awards. She is joined by Rachel Dalton as the Angel. Rachel has worked with many of Adelaide's theatre companies, including St Jude's Players, Galleon Theatre Group, Sterling Players, the Adelaide Repertory Theatre, Therry Dramatic Society, and Butterfly Theatre's Beer Theatre. And she's back, returning to the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild's stage. What drew you to this material?
Well, Angels is a classic play. It's been a part of the theatrical heritage, obviously, since it was written. So these are pieces and people that have been around for quite a while. It's a piece that's incredibly challenging for everybody in it, not least the director. So, yeah, there's something to be said for being a part of a piece that is very rarely put on, certainly in the amateur theatre land, and probably won't be done again for a long time. So there's a challenge just being involved in a piece with such a heritage and such importance, I suppose, in the theatrical landscape.
I think also what I was really pleased about was both plays, not just the first. So I think that again, and you know, committing to do, you know, a 6-hour piece of theatre is, it's presented its challenges as far as rehearsals and just the length of rehearsals, the time period, the commitment, but also so rewarding.
And I don't think it is a piece you really can just do one part of it. I've heard people say, oh, should we just come to the first one or should we just come to the second one? And without putting down those choices, obviously people can come to one or both, that's fine. But I do genuinely think you get the most out of it if you see both. Seeing just the first or just the second, you lose the journey in some ways. You either miss out on some great bits or you actually don't get to see the whole journey of characters and the whole tapestry that is created by these people across this 6.5-hour epic, which we hope to not feel like 6.5 hours when you're actually sitting and reading it.
It does.
No.
It seems like, well, you know, 3 hours for the first play seems long, but it goes
flies.
So quickly. And they're short, sharp, shiny little scenes, and I think that helps to. And Hayley is just drumming us on pace and energy. Yeah. So it I don't know, it just doesn't feel long at all.
And every scene is 2, 3, 4 at the absolute most people in it, and there are different combinations of those 2, 3, 4 each time. So in fact I think there's only one scene in the entire play where all of us are on stage, so which is quite weird when we got to that point.
We were very excited.
Where we actually got a bit silly, that rehearsal, because it is just so strange to not just be working with 2 others, 1 other on stage. So yes, it does move. The play moves quickly because it's these 2 again, and what's this person's journey, and we move between the scenes reasonably swiftly. So, which of course is in itself a challenge to stage in a space
small
like
theatre.
that.
We pace a lot more than anyone. I'm a pacer. I think
Just starting at Secret.
I'm in that. That's me, yeah.
Is that you or is that me?
It's me. So I'm in that.
5 more minutes.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
No, I don't. Keeping my toes.
Yeah, we work. I think we work different. Everybody works differently. Some people cling to their script for a long time, not as a security blanket, but just because when they're ready to put the script down, they're ready to really put the script down. Whereas others like to get it out of their hand as quickly as they can and muddle through and repetition gets you to a point of, I think, comfort and
blocking helps.
Some people
with that.
work from the blocking. But there is that. But that hasn't really been, just because some people work slightly differently. I don't think it's stopped anybody else from. No.
Well, it can also bring things out of other people.
Yeah.
Well,
and some of us have met the challenge. There were people who were booked down from first rehearsal, and we all kind of went, shivers, we need to step our game up, don't we? Okay, I thought I was okay, but now I see what others are able to do. I need to work a bit harder. So,
but when I'm blocking, I like to have my script.
Oh, no, I'm not saying we don't have to, but...
And how has it been navigating the movement, accent and text?
You've got the most movement, probably, challenges trying with the angel.
Yes, so the angel is trickier, I guess, thinking about, but I have approached her from that physicality first, and that's helped me find her, that character.
Because everybody else is quite, apart from Ethel, is quite real and...
Yeah, and I think...
There's a couple of other minor ones.
Yeah, so that's, really open. And so I think... I have to say, if anyone is thinking, it's like the TV series, which I haven't watched, she is nothing like the TV series.
No.
I don't think anything in the play, I think it's very different from a TV series.
Yes.
From what I've heard. So we're not white fluffies, angels, and no. When am I going to get another opportunity to play a part like this? Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So it's fabulous. And I've never played lots of multiple characters in a play. And again, that sort of double casting of, I play a Mormon mother, I play a Mormon real estate agent, I play a psychotic homeless person. So there's all these different characters. And so for me, that's just been such an exciting challenge.
Yeah.
I've never done that before. So
you also said about starting with the physicality with the angel.
Yeah.
Have you done that with the other characters? Or...
Yeah, actually, I do tend to start... the script's fantastic, so a lot of it's just written in there. But I do tend to work from I wouldn't say Laban, but I don't know. I just think about physicality.
I do.
Like with the Ella chapter, I always think, she's a squeezer. She's pressing, and there's a downwardness to her, whereas, I don't know.
Right.
It just sort of happens. But the script's so beautiful, and the writing is it's just superb, and I think that gives you the bulk of it.
And what about accent work? How does that come into play?
Accents have been fine. I've tried to meet each one, make them specific and different. They're all fairly set. This person is from this place, from that. So you just follow what's given. So you just learn the accent as required.
So accent-wise, I think we've all been working on that. There's sections of Hebrew, and Kate has worked fantastically. And we had someone come in and work with us on that.
Okay, hi, I'm here with Annabelle. Can you explain your role and what you do at the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild?
Certainly. So I am the administrator by title. I'm sure that encompasses a lot of other things as well. So administrator, secretary, treasurer, publicist, front of house manager and volunteer coordinator. Basically, I do a lot of coordinating. So I've been here for 3 years, basically non-stop, but I was here in 2018 as a quote-unquote intern when the Guild was celebrating its 80th, had extra shows, extra projects on, and I ended up staying most of that year. And then they asked me back at the beginning of 2021 because I had the availability and also I knew the job. So they asked if I was available. I said, yep, certainly, I love this job, I'll come back and I'll do it. And I've been here ever since.
Oh, how wonderful. And you are very much like the front of house face that we see when we come through the doors. And you mentioned that you organise the volunteers. So how do people volunteer at the Guild?
People seek us out either from a pure love of theatre, so they might approach a lot of theatre companies in Adelaide. Specifically because we're part of a university, we get volunteers who explore the volunteering site on the university website, and we've got a position there for front of house people. The Guild site itself also has, register interest for volunteering front of house, but also backstage and everything up to and including directing. So usually it's public and students, or the general public and students who have an interest or a passion for theatre, and they seek us out. We occasionally put out a call for volunteers, and we certainly put out calls for directing as well. So whatever your interest in theatre, anyone who is available and keen, they're welcome to approach us and say, yeah, we'd love to have new volunteers on board. What are your areas of interest? And different people have different levels of experience, but we welcome volunteers of all levels of experience. So there's always a position here or there to fill backstage, but with front of house, which is something I keep a close eye on, I'm happy to take in new volunteers for each production. Again, because we're part of a university, there's always a new influx of students, and they're from all walks of life as well. So you get some really interesting people in, and a lot of people have made friends, which is something that's pretty sweet.
So that's an option too, with lighting and sound design and set building and crewing. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I think the possibilities, they're kind of endless. Some of these skills are transferable away from the theatre, but we get people interested who have interest in painting and say, oh, I'll be happy to paint a set, and by all means. And then they get into set construction or something like that. So that's just something else for their CV, if nothing else, if they don't decide to stay in the theatre or in the Theatre Guild. Our board members are made up with a lot of actors, some have directed, some people who work at the university and have a passion for theatre. A lot of our previous chairpersons are just people who like theatre and may not necessarily be as heavily involved as, say, you and I would be. I mean, people who've been around for a while, I mean, they're still here, and now they are starting to mentor people as well. And we've got the Theatre Guild Student Society, of course, and our board likes to take an active overseeing and supervising and encouraging of their projects as well, because they're doing some great stuff too.
Yeah, they certainly are. What keeps you coming back and staying on in your current role?
I think it's a genuine love of theatre. It's a role that is full on, but it's rewarding. I'm paid for part-time hours, but I do probably more volunteer hours than I do paid. So it's a unique position in that respect, but if it wasn't part of a university, they wouldn't need someone full-time. Unfortunately, the university stopped funding us right at the height of COVID. But what keeps me coming back, it's not the money per se. Yes, I need to pay my mortgage, but I have another job. Sometimes I have 3 jobs going at once. But it's the love of the theatre. It's the rush of a show. It's the camaraderie between all the people, the cast, the crew. Everybody here is a volunteer. We're doing it because we love it, and I think that's it. We're doing it because we love it, and I think that comes through.
Absolutely, comes through in the overall product. Lastly, I would just like to ask, if people want to make a donation to the Guild, how would they go about that?
I suppose the easiest way is to just simply email the Guild, approach us, or if you know somebody who's on the board currently, certainly speak to them, and we can take it from there, because that would be considered and dealt with at board level. That being said, when you buy your tickets to the shows, we have a little donation link on those ticket sales as well. It's not compulsory by any means, but to keep the Guild running, to keep it functioning, to keep putting on these good quality shows, we do accept donations on ticket sales, and that includes membership as well.
Excellent. And if you need to find out any more about that, you can contact us here at For the Love of Theatre podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for your time, Annabelle.
No worries, thank you.
To thank all members of the cast and crew of Angels in America for taking part in this episode. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Phil Short again for supplying the music you heard in this episode, along with Annabelle Whitford, the theatre administrator of the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild, who not only helped me organise the interviews, but who also helped me edit some of this episode. Thank you, Annabelle. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for future episodes, if you'd like to host, or you have a creative quote of your own that you'd like to provide, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast platform and leave us a review. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of For the Love of Theatre podcast, bringing community theatre to you. Until next time.